The morning started like any other, golden sunrise washing over the mountain range, coffee steaming on my porch, the sound of wind through the pine trees. It was why I built here, far from the chaos of the city, a custom-built mountain mansion that had cost me 5 years of savings, sweat, and sacrifice. But that peace shattered with the sound of diesel engines. I looked down the long driveway and froze. 3 bulldozers were crawling up toward my house like giant yellow beasts, followed by a convoy of trucks. Men in hard hats hopped out, clipboards in hand, and started placing stakes around my property. I ran down to meet them. What the hell is going on? One of the men, smug, sunglasses on, reflective vest bright in the sun, didn't even look up from his clipboard. Demolition order. HOA says you're delinquent on your fees. We've got orders to bring the structure down today. My stomach dropped. What fees? I've paid everything. Not according to them, he said, shrugging. Look, you can call them, but we've got a schedule to keep. And then the bulldozer started its engine. I yelled, ran back toward the house, waving my arms, but the machines didn't stop. Within minutes, the sound of cracking wood and shattering glass filled the air. I watched in horror as my dream home collapsed under the weight of their machines. The mansion I had built board by board, paid for brick by brick, gone in under 2 hours. By the time the dust settled, all that was left was rubble and twisted metal. The HOA president, Karen with a clipboard herself, showed up just as the last truck pulled away. She smirked at me. You should have paid your dues. Maybe next time you'll read the fine print. I was shaking, from rage, from disbelief. I'm suing you, I said through clenched teeth. Good luck, she said with a laugh. Our bylaws are ironclad. You won't win. That was the moment I decided. If they wanted war, I'd give them a war they'd never forget. The night after the demolition, I didn't sleep. I sat in what used to be my driveway, a single folding chair placed where my front door once stood. The mountain air was cold, but my blood was boiling. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the bulldozers roaring, the glass shattering, the HOA president's smug smile as she walked away. She thought she had won. But Karen didn't know who she was messing with. By sunrise, I had a plan. The first step was lawyers, but not just any lawyers. I drove into the city and found the nastiest, most aggressive property rights attorney I could. When I told him what happened, his eyes lit up. They did this without a court order? He asked. Nothing. Just an HOA notice stuck to my mailbox the day before. They didn't even give me time to respond. He whistled. That's illegal as hell. But we'll use that. By the time I left his office, we had filed an emergency injunction and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the HOA for unlawful seizure, destruction of property, and emotional damages. But legal action alone wasn't enough. I didn't just want money. I wanted to wipe that smug grin off Karen's face. That's when I started digging. I spent hours in the county records office, pulling every document I could find about the HOA, their charter, their budget, their meeting notes. And what I found was pure gold. Karen and her little HOA council had been illegally collecting special assessments for years, funneling the extra money into a maintenance fund that didn't exist. They were embezzling from the entire neighborhood, and nobody had caught them because they hid it in the fine print. I grinned for the first time in days. Now I had leverage. The next step was tech. I installed hidden trail cameras all over the neighborhood. I knew the HOA board met every Friday night at their clubhouse. If they so much as tried to shred evidence, I'd have video proof. I also reached out to a buddy of mine who worked in cybersecurity. Can you get me into their email system? I asked. He hesitated. You know that's. I'm not asking you to hack, I said. Just monitor. If anything shady pops up, I want to know. Within a week, I had everything I needed. Video evidence of the HOA using bulldozers without permits. Financial records proving embezzlement. Emails showing Karen approving it all. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. Not until I had something big. That's when the final piece fell into place. The state legislature was reviewing a bill that would allow small communities to dissolve HOAs if they were found guilty of financial misconduct. If I timed this right, I wouldn't just win a lawsuit, I'd erase Karen's HOA from existence. I sat at my laptop one night, looking at my growing evidence folder. The fire in my chest had cooled into something sharper, deadlier: focus. Karen thought bulldozing my house was the end of my story. But it was just the beginning. By the time Friday rolled around, I was ready. The HOA board gathered like clockwork at their fancy little clubhouse, a converted community center with "private meeting, members only" posted on the door. Normally, I wouldn't be allowed in. But this time, I didn't need to be. I was already inside, virtually. Hidden cameras I'd placed the night before streamed their every move to my laptop. I watched as Karen sat at the head of the table, tapping her pen on a stack of papers. "First order of business," she said, "the lawsuit filed by you-know-who." The board laughed. Karen smirked. "Don't worry. Our lawyer says we'll crush him. Our bylaws are airtight." I smiled. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I uploaded the first batch of evidence to a private website I had created, a digital exposé, complete with photos, financial spreadsheets, and clips from the board meeting. Then I sent the link to every homeowner in the community. Within hours, my phone started blowing up. Neighbors were furious. One even showed up at my temporary rental, waving their HOA fee invoice in my face. "Is this true?" he asked. "They've been stealing from us for years?" "Yep," I said calmly. "And you've all been paying for it." By that evening, the neighborhood group chat was on fire. People were threatening to boycott HOA dues, file their own lawsuits, even call the police. Karen tried to do damage control, sending a community-wide email claiming the documents were fabricated. Bad move. Because that night, I released the second wave of evidence. Video clips of the board openly discussing their illegal fund. The reaction was nuclear. By the end of the week, half the neighborhood had stopped paying dues. Without that money, the HOA was bleeding. I could see the pressure building. Karen's perfect little empire was starting to crack. But I wasn't done. I filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general's office, attaching all my evidence. Within 48 hours, investigators showed up at the HOA office with subpoenas. The board scrambled, trying to shred documents, but my cameras caught everything. I sent that footage straight to the state investigators. The next Friday, the HOA board meeting wasn't so smug. Karen sat there pale and sweating as the other board members shouted at her. "This is your fault," one of them yelled. "You told us we could get away with it." Karen slammed her pen on the table. "Everyone calm down. We can fix this." But she was wrong. Because that was the night I made my final move. I sent my entire evidence package, videos, financial records, and board meeting transcripts, to a local investigative journalist. By Monday morning, the story was everywhere. HOA scandal in mountain community. President under investigation for fraud. TV crews showed up. Neighbors gathered in the street, demanding Karen's resignation. For the first time, she didn't look smug. She looked scared. And I wasn't even finished yet. I had one more card to play, the state bill that could dissolve HOAs caught in fraud. If it passed, Karen wouldn't just lose her position. Her entire HOA district would cease to exist. The next few weeks were chaos, but this time, the chaos wasn't mine. It belonged to the HOA. Their board meetings, once private and smug, had turned into shouting matches. My cameras caught Karen screaming at the treasurer, waving papers in the air. "We are not broke," she shouted. The treasurer slammed a folder shut. "We have $20,000 left in the operating account. That's it. If half the neighborhood keeps withholding dues, we can't pay security, maintenance, or legal fees." I smiled as I watched from my laptop. The state investigators moved fast. Within days, they had frozen the HOA's accounts pending the fraud investigation. That meant no more lawyers, no more special assessments, and no money to intimidate residents with legal threats. Neighbors who once avoided me started knocking on my door, thanking me for exposing the corruption. "Do you think we can actually get rid of them?" one man asked. "Yes," I said. "But we need to push hard. And fast." So I organized a neighborhood town hall, but not under the HOA's control. We met in the community park, hundreds of residents showing up, some carrying signs that read, "Dissolve the HO" and "Justice for our homes." I stood on a picnic table and addressed the crowd. They destroyed my house. They stole from all of you. And now we have a chance to make sure this never happens again. The state is reviewing a bill that can dissolve corrupt HOAs, but we need to prove we support it. People cheered, clapped, shouted in agreement. We drafted a petition right there in the park, and by the end of the day, almost every homeowner had signed it. Karen, of course, tried to stop us. The next morning, she marched up to me in the middle of the street, cameras flashing from news reporters nearby. "You are ruining this community," she screamed. "No," I said calmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You ruined it the day you sent bulldozers to my property." The crowd erupted into applause. Karen's face turned bright red. Then came the court hearings. My lawyer shredded their defense, piece by piece. "Your Honor," he said, holding up a photo of my demolished house, "this was done without a court order, without a lien, and without due process. This was a private army destroying private property." Karen sat at the defense table, jaw clenched. When the judge asked if she had any permits for demolition, she stuttered. "No, Your Honor, but according to our bylaws." "Your bylaws don't supersede state law," the judge interrupted sharply. The courtroom buzzed. I could feel victory in the air. Outside, reporters swarmed me. "What do you want to see happen next?" one asked. I didn't hesitate. "I want every single member of this corrupt HOA board removed from power. And I want their charter dissolved, permanently." The clip made the evening news. Behind the scenes, I got word from my attorney that the state legislature was now fast-tracking the bill. "If it passes next week," he said, "their HOA district will legally cease to exist." "Good," I said. "Let's make sure it does." That weekend, I took things one step further. I organized a march. Dozens of homeowners walked through the neighborhood holding signs, chanting, demanding Karen's resignation. By the end of the day, 3 board members had quit. Only Karen and one loyal crony remained. She was losing power by the hour. As the sun set that night, I stood on the edge of the lot where my mansion once stood. So I thought, soon, this entire HO would be nothing but a bad memory, wiped off the map like it never existed. The day of the state vote felt like Judgment Day. I drove down to the Capitol, petition signatures in hand, flanked by dozens of neighbors. News crews lined the steps, cameras flashing. Inside the chamber, lawmakers debated the bill for nearly 2 hours. Karen was there too, sitting a few rows back, pale and silent. She looked nothing like the smug woman who once smirked at me over the ruins of my mansion. When the roll call came, the room went dead silent. One by one, lawmakers voted. Aye. 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 When the last name was read, the speaker banged the gavel. By a vote of 27-3, the bill passes. The room erupted in applause. I closed my eyes for a moment and let the sound wash over me. It was done. By the end of the week, the HOA's charter had been legally dissolved. No more board. No more dues. No more bylaws. Their office was shuttered, their signs taken down. It was as if they had never existed. Karen's downfall came next. State investigators completed their case, and she was charged with fraud, unlawful property seizure, and embezzlement. The day they hauled her away in handcuffs, half the neighborhood came out to watch. Some people even cheered. I stood with my arms crossed, watching her get loaded into the squad car. She shot me one last look, not angry, not smug, just broken. And that was enough. But the victory wasn't just about Karen. The state awarded me a massive settlement for the destruction of my mansion, enough to rebuild it bigger, stronger, better. This time, I didn't just rebuild. I installed state-of-the-art security cameras, motion sensors, and gates. If anyone ever came near my property again with a bulldozer, I'd know before they even made it up the driveway. The following summer, I hosted a massive neighborhood barbecue on my new porch. Everyone showed up, even former board members who had quit before the scandal broke wide open. People laughed, kids played in the yard, and for the first time in months, there was no tension in the air. Just peace. As the sun set, I grabbed a drink and walked out to the edge of the deck. The mountains stretched out before me, bathed in gold and orange light. For a moment, I thought about everything I'd lost, and everything I'd gained. Karen had tried to break me. Instead, she turned me into the one thing she feared most, the man who ended her reign forever. I smiled to myself. The HOA was gone. My house was rebuilt. And my mountain was finally mine again.